What's going on, guys? The Comics Kid 2099 here. Welcome to day 268 of the 365-day graphic novel review challenge. Today, I want to talk to you about another Hellboy-related book. This is BPRD, Hollow Earth and Other Stories. This is by a whole slew of comic book creators. There's a list of some of the people involved with this book. Don't let the title of this book fool you. This is not necessarily one of those anthology volumes that has a whole bunch of short stories that don't really connect to each other, but they're all set in the same world and mostly feature the same characters. About 80% of this book is the backdoor pilot for the BPRD spinoff, and then there's a few bonus stories thrown in there that don't really have anything to do with the main thrust of this volume, but I feel like this is mostly the story of Abe Sapien and Roger the Homunculus and a new agent of the BPRD, Johann Kraus. They are going to rescue Liz Sherman, who went to try and find herself and find some degree of control over her superpowers, and they're going to rescue her after something happens to her. And that is the main thrust and plot of this book. That takes up about 2/3 of the book or a little more, and then you get a few bonus stories in there, and that is not to diss the bonus stories. They are quite good also. There's one story in here which, according to Scott Alley, who's the editor of this series, he said it's the first Hellboy story without Hellboy, and it has Abe Sapien and this psychic guy. They are going and investigating this ship where lots of weird deaths have taken place. There's some really gross, gruesome pictures here. There's this one guy who turns into a giant boar giant type creature, like a warthog type character, and that just looks really awesome. All the pictures of the sharks look really cool. That is some of the most disgusting but awesome comic book art that I've ever seen. I am not in any way dismissing it. I think it looks really cool, but it also looks kind of gross, and I think that was the intended effect. I really liked that. We also get to see a story about Abe Sapien befriending Roger the Homunculus, and that was referenced in one of the Hellboy volumes right before Hellboy quit the Bureau. I don't remember which volume that was, but it was referenced there, and we actually get to see that play out here. But then we get another appearance of Lobster Johnson. This was apparently the first appearance of him, so yay! I love Lobster Johnson. I like Roger the Homunculus also, but Lobster Johnson is my favorite Hellboy character, and we get to see another really awesome 1930s pulp-flavored story here, and I could just live off of Lobster Johnson stories for the rest of my life, and that would be just really cool. But I was not expecting another Lobster Johnson story. I don't know what is in store for this series in the later volumes, but I think it would just be super cool if we could see more Lobster Johnson in the pages of BPRD. We got to see him briefly in one of the Hellboy volumes, and then I've talked about one of his solo volumes, but it'd just be really cool if he showed up in the present day, and yet we still retained that pulp flavor that was very much alive in his solo stories. So that is about all that we have here. I really love this book a lot. What I like the most about this is that while Hellboy is not there, we still get to see what a huge deal it was that he left the Bureau. That had a pretty big impact on his solo series, and in my opinion, it was kind of a big mistake having him leave the Bureau, at least in terms of storytelling, because everything after he left the Bureau has basically just been him wandering the Earth, and it's a lot more difficult telling stories about a character who is not actively pursuing something than it is a character who is working with an agency that is actively pursuing something. The Bureau, they are actively trying to combat paranormal threats, and after Hellboy quits the Bureau, he's not actively trying to combat paranormal threats. He's just kind of out there hanging out, and then something happens and he gets involved with it. And so I feel like the solo Hellboy stories have suffered a little bit since he left the Bureau, but this story is very strong, and it shows that Hellboy was a big part of the Bureau. He wasn't just another agent, and we see that this had a pretty big impact on Abe Sapien and what his place in the Bureau was after Hellboy left. And then we also get to see that Hellboy was a big part of Liz Sherman's life. In the movies, Hellboy and Liz kind of had a romantic relationship going on, and that was not part of the comics, but they do have a relationship. They have a platonic friendship that we can see the beginning of that here in this book in terms of a flashback, and I really like the way they build Hellboy as being just friends with these guys. There's nothing more to it than that. He's nice to Abe Sapien. He's nice to Liz Sherman. Everyone else treats them like freaks who are not even in any way sentient or have feelings at all, and Hellboy just ignores those guys and says, I'm going to go and be nice to this Abe Sapien guy. I'm going to give him a ham sandwich and everything will be okay. I love that line of dialogue. And then there's this really beautiful scene where he gives Liz Sherman a lollipop about. Those are just really great. It shows that Hellboy had a very big impact on these guys, and now that he has been taken out of the context of the Bureau, we see that their lives have changed quite a bit. So Hellboy himself, not actually in this book a whole lot, but we still get to see that his absence is felt very much so in the context of the series. And I'm very much looking forward to seeing what the creators of the series are going to do with this group of characters now that Hellboy is not part of the Bureau. So look forward to me talking about another volume of the BPRD tomorrow. In the meantime, I hope that you guys like my review of Hollow-Earth and Other Stories. And if you did, be sure to like, share, comment, and subscribe. And I will be back tomorrow with a different video. In the meantime, you guys have a great rest of the day. Catch you later.